There are a lot of bikes that you may want, but the Clovis 6.1 is the bike that you really need. And why do I say that? Well, to find that out, you will have to wait till the end of this video. So let's begin what we call bike unveiling. And today, as you may have guessed, we're gonna talk about the United Clovis 6.1. The frame on the Clovis 6.1 is built out of 6061 aluminium alloy. That's normal, but there are three very interesting things about this frame. This is the same frame that the Clovis 6.1 shares across the Clovis lineup. The first is that this is a hydroformed frame.
Hydroforming is the process of using fluid under pressure to alter the shape of a ductile material. Tube hydroforming is the most common form of hydroforming and is used to change the usual round cross-section of metal tubes. The tube is then placed into the die. Fluid is pushed into the tube at a high pressure while the metal is forced into shape. Finally, the fluid is drained, and in the case of bicycle frame, the parts are welded together.
The second interesting bit is that it's a double butted frame. Butting refers to a process where you use more material at stressed areas and less material where the tubes are not stressed. This results in an equally strong but a much lightweight frame. Finally, this frame comes with boost spacing. Boost basically refers to 6mm wide axles. In a nutshell, it gives you much stiffer wheels for a 29er by pushing out the hub flanges. It also gives you clearance for bigger tires. However, the biggest change for 2023, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that the frame comes with an FSA, Simple Routing System, or the SRS. The SRS system is a big improvement on the old internal cable routing system that the Clovis 6.1 came with. Not only does the system look a lot cleaner and nicer, because there are no cables on the sides, it means less cable snag when you go through undergrowth. And finally, the Clovis 6.1 comes in two color shades, the brown gray and the green brown that you see over here. I personally love the green brown because, well, I love green, but let me know in the comments below which one do you prefer. And while we are talking about the paint scheme, it's important that I mention the welding as well. Just look at the quality of welding at the head tube and at the seat tube. This is finished off so well, and it just leaves you with such a nice looking product, something that will even rival the carbon frames out there. And speaking of the frame, there are no fender mounts and there is only one bottle cage on the frame. And the reason for this is that the Clovis series is an out-and-out XC bike. It's not a kind of a do-it-all mountain bike where you would have grommets for fenders, for a kickstand, and so on and so forth. And finally, whereas other bike manufacturers are vacillating whether they should give you a through axle or a quick release, United has just gone ahead and done it on the Clovis series. There is a through axle up front and there is a through axle at the back as well. The fork on the bike is an SR Suntour XCR 32 fork. It comes with steel 32mm stanchions, 100mm of travel, preload and rebound adjustment, and a remote lockout. I think the fact that it comes with preload and rebound adjustment is a great touch over here. The feature that I was not so convinced about was the remote lockout. But now, after having used it for a week, I can simply say that this is my favorite feature of the fork. The fact that you can lock and unlock the fork without taking your hands off the handlebar, great, especially if you ride in mixed terrain like I do. And like I said before, it uses a through axle up front with 110mm boost spacing. Oh, and one final bit, scanning the code on your SR Suntour fork gives you the complete product breakdown of the fork. This is great if you want to get replacement parts later. Drivetrain on the Clovis 6.1 is a 1x12 speed drivetrain. In the front, you have an OEM branded 1x crankset. This 34-tooth crankset is CNC machined out of 7075 aluminium. It has a narrow wide tooth profile to retain the chain, 110 BCD diameter, and the great thing is that the chainring is not riveted into the crank. The bike employs a OEM branded Holotech bottom bracket, which makes the crank to be a two-piece crank. Again, this is OEM branded, but at least it's Holotech, which is better than the square taper malarkey on the Trek Roscoe 6. On the back is where the fun begins. This thing comes with the biggest cassette that I've seen. It's an 1150 OEM branded cassette, but it's huge. I've had cassettes on my bike, but I've never had a cassette that has almost 500% range. The rear derailleur is one place where United has not cut costs. This is a genuine DRA 6100 12-speed rear derailleur. It comes with Shadow Plus technology. Plus essentially refers to the fact that it comes with a built-in clutch, and the Shadow technology means that the derailleur sits much closer to the cassette, making it less prone to rock hits and other dangers. And finally, the chain is a 12-speed YBN affair. The brakes on this bike are a hydraulic disc brake setup, Shimano MT200 disc brakes front and rear, and these are mated to 160mm rotors, again front and rear. New for 2023 is the fact that these rotors are made by Shimano now. These are not the OEM rotors that you used to get earlier. The wheels on this bike use Nautilus double-walled rims. Both these wheels are 32 spoke and they're mated to sealed bearing hubs front and rear. These hubs are then mated to 6-bolt brake rotors. Tires on the bike are Maxxis Ardent 29ers, 2.25 inches in width, and I quite like them because they roll decently well. They're good in sticky, muddy kind of situation, not that great on rock or gravel. In terms of tread pattern, I think it's a good compromise. It's important to note here that neither the tires nor the rims are tubeless compatible. By default, they come with Maxxis tubes that have Presta valves, and the rim lining is decent as well. The finishing kit on the bike is completely by Nautilus, which is United's house brand. This includes a 60mm stem, a 740mm handlebar, a 350mm seat post, and a Nautilus saddle as well. Even the hand grips are Nautilus branded. Talking about the finishing kit, there are 4 interesting aspects here. The first is that the handlebars don't come with a back sweep. They're more or less straight. The second interesting bit, and I think almost every manufacturer should do this, is that it has markings on the seat post. This makes it extremely easy to move the seat post to your own personal height. And even after you've lowered the seat post on tricky descents, you can still bring it back to your own height fairly quickly. The grips are small, but they do offer decent comfort. But finally, it's the saddle that really impresses me. I've had a lot of OEM saddles on my bikes, and this is the first thing that I throw away. But the saddle here on the Clovis 6.1 is really good quality. If I do change it, I will change it because I have a better quality saddle. But for most people, this will plain simply work out of the box. When it comes to Clovis 6.1, I have a list of 5 pros and 3 cons that I think make up this bike. The biggest pro of this bike is its price. It offers you an exceptional kit for 76,100 rupees. And I don't think this value for money question can be beaten by any other bike in the market right now. The 1x12 drivetrain on this bike is another standout feature. A Shimano Deore 6100 rear derailleur is not something that you see at this price point. It shifts great, has a huge range, and the clutch keeps the chain slap in place. What's not to like about it? The Suntour XCR 32 fork is another great addition to this bike. It doesn't rattle or shake, the stanchions are nice and wide. It takes a little bit of time to dial in your preload, but once you do, it works admirably without a snag. I've always maintained that it's nice to have a good quality coil fork compared to a crappy air fork, and the 6.1 redeems me on that point. The fourth pro about this bike is that it uses the latest standards, from a tapered head tube to boost spacing to front and rear through axles, which really means that the upgrades in the Clovis 6.1 will not be a problem. And finally, at number 5, it comes with a decent quality home brand kit. Small touches like a decent saddle, a seat post with markings, a non-riveted crank just adds value, and it shows that somebody has really given thought about the engineering on this bike. When it comes to cons, the biggest con on this bike is that it comes with non-tubeless rims and home brand hubs. I think the days of tubes are over when it comes to mountain bikings, and especially on cross-country mountain biking. I'm not asking for tubeless tires here because that's a consumable, and brands have to pay considerable money to get it from third-party suppliers. And I think tubeless rims could have been provided because it's a home brand and it doesn't take that kind of investment to ramp up from tubed wheels to tubeless wheels. The second con on this bike is that the bottom bracket and crank are OEM and they are not from Shimano. While just being OEM doesn't make them bad, but having a Shimano branded part means there's a certain peace of mind for somebody who's spending 70 large ones. Finally, at number 3, it doesn't come with routing for an internal dropper post. This I really miss because adding a dropper post routing wouldn't have added to the cost, and it gives you a nice upgrade path when you want to push your XC riding to the next level. Videos like this do take a lot of time and effort, and you can show your support by subscribing to this channel and by sharing this video. So let's get to the conclusion now. In India, we have a common saying that goes like, "Kitna deti hai?" or "How much does it give?" I think for 76,100, the Clovis 6.1 आपको बहुत सारा देती है. It has a lot to give you. With its quality frame, a 1x12 drivetrain, following the latest standard, this is a bike that you will not outgrow in the next 2 to 3 years. As you know, for 2023, I had the option of selecting any bike from the United stable. And really, in such cases, the temptation to get the most expensive bike is really strong. But I restricted myself to the Clovis 6.1 because I really believe that the Clovis 6.1 offers you the best value for money for any bike that is available and being sold in India right now. If you're looking for a cross-country XC bike and the United Clovis 6.1 is not on your radar, then I think you're really doing something wrong. I would give this bike a very strong 4.5 out of 5 llamas. I've docked it half a llama just because it doesn't come with the tubeless rim. So if you're new to the sport or you're looking to get back into mountain biking and you're not looking at really gnarly trails or big jumps, then go get the Clovis 6.1. You will have a lot of fun on this bike.